Who always sat? Who was the celebrity that always sat center square? There's always somebody eccentric and crazy. Hey, Rick, first of all, thank you for doing this. We appreciate it. And congratulations on the gig. It's pretty cool to be calling CFL football. You got a dream job like Dave does for a lot of us that grew up watching this game and then getting into this business.
Absolutely. Number one, thanks for having me on the show. Number two, what is old is new again. I was the Ticats play-by-play guy from 07 to 14, living out a boyhood dream, and now they've invited me back here for 2025 and hopefully many more years to come. It's the thrill of a lifetime. Calling CFL games is absolutely tremendous.
Well, long-time listener, first-time talker, Rick. Appreciate you doing this. He's in Hamilton here this week. Can you tell me first and foremost what the takeaway was from the game in Calgary? Because at times I felt frustrated watching it because I'm like, they're right there. It's just one play.
Yeah, it seemed to be, and a lot of the talk coming into this season, even at the end of last season, was, this team needs to get off to a fast start. And obviously that looks like more wins than losses. And it seems like every year they're 0-2, or like last year, 0-5, and they're 2-9, when Labor Day rolls around, and it's just not good enough. So a lot of the commentary from the coaching staff and the players towards the end of last year when they were officially eliminated all through training camp and even leading up to week 1 against the Stampeders in Calgary is, this is an important game. We have to win these games early on in the season so that they do matter in the win-loss column towards the end. And so, it seemed like everything that could go wrong in terms of those 3 or 4 plays that ultimately decide each and every game on the calendar kind of went Calgary's way. Kind of muffed punt by Nick Constantino in the end of the first half. The opening kickoff of the second half didn't go their way, whether the Ticats were not paying attention or not, or whatever happened. It did not work for them. Defensively, they made, a couple of key plays with turnovers, but then their offense could not follow suit with points off turnovers. So they have a long way to go. They have some work to do. The buzzword this week has been irritable. Coaches, the players are irritated at not getting the job done in week 1. Let's see how they respond here in week 2 on Saturday night.
I made the comment earlier that Hamilton's a better football team than I thought we saw last week against Calgary. What do they think of the Riders coming in? What has been the buzz around the Big Green Machine coming to town?
The buzzword is great football team, well coached, tough elite defense, an offense that can score virtually at will when they're on their game. Saskatchewan's always seems to have a good special teams unit as well. So here's a team in which any opponent, any week, has to beat Saskatchewan at least 2 out of the 3 phases on the football field. And that's easier said than done, as you all well know. So Hamilton's offense has to be on point. The defense has to be much better than what they showed against the Stampeders. They can't let Saskatchewan score 30-plus points. That's a recipe for a big fat L on that side of the ledger. And on special teams, the Ticats return game looked really good last week with Isaiah Wooden returning a 105-yard kickoff for a touchdown. But the punting, the coverage unit has to be that much better. Field position, for momentum, maybe a turnover on special teams. So in order to win 2 of those 3 phases, I think all 3 phases of their team have to be much better against the Riders on Saturday.
I'm hoping you can peel back a layer for me a little bit. Not a lot of people know this, but Barney and Sharky do not like each other, but they actually get along really well when they're working together. Having said that, though, last year it seemed like the relationship between Scott Milanovich and Bo Levi Mitchell hit rock bottom, but somehow the 2 professionals were able to collaborate and find some success. Is that kind of the message? Is that the relationship between the 2 of them?
I think they're on much better terms going into this season as opposed to especially the start of last season. I think the thing that got under the skin of Scott Milanovich was too many turnovers. As good as Bo was in getting yardage and getting some touchdowns, they weren't translating into wins because he and the team as a whole were turning the ball over far too many times in the opening weeks of the 2024 regular season campaign. And, he got benched, as we all know. Taylor Powell comes in. He gets hurt in that game. Bo comes in. And it's almost like an in-season renaissance for Bo Levi Mitchell. And he goes on to have one of the most extraordinary seasons in Ticats history. Most ever passing yards, led the league in touchdown passes, unfortunately still led the league in interceptions. That second half of the season for him and the offense was like night and day because they weren't turning the ball over as much. They were scoring a lot of points. They were getting some wins. So I think from about Labor Day on, Milanovic and Mitchell were on the same page, have been on the same page. They are not only coexisting, but they're liking what they're getting out of each other. And I think there was a lot left to be desired last week, but I think at least the offense and what Mitchell has brought to the table is trending and has been trending in the right direction for several months now.
Corey Mace's defense, playing that bend but don't break, playing that zone. What causes Bo more problems in your opinion? Is it the man or is it the zone defense?
Well, I think it's the confusion because, and Calgary did this very well last week. Damon Webb was, an elite player last season. He showed he can still bring it this year in his first campaign with the Stampeders because he was coming down and helping the linebackers, helping the halfbacks. And at times they were showing zone and they switched to man. And I think that not necessarily confused Bo Levi, but really threw him off. And that's a surprise because you are preparing for weeks knowing that Calgary is game number one. I think they were a little taken aback at what the Stampeders were able to do on defense. You look at that side of the ball, apart from Webb and Ormalade, you look at the names and think, okay, we might have a chance to beat these guys scoring a lot of points, but credit to the Stamps. Not only did they stop them time and time again, but they made some big plays on defense to kind of quell the tide, especially early on as Calgary's offense got going, and Dedrick Mills was a man on fire last weekend. So I think Bo and the offense was a little taken aback at what Calgary not only had game planned for, but executed as well.
I look at the Hamilton offense, Rick, and the first thing that jumps off the page at me are like, oh my gosh, he's got so many weapons, so many places that he can distribute the ball, but there's only one ball and there's one Kenny Lawler that's been added into that mix. How is that integration gone? And again, you can't give everyone the ball, so does that create a little competition within practices?
It definitely has in training camp, in the preseason games, and we saw a little bit of it in the loss against Calgary is, there's only one ball. Bo's got to pick his spots, but he also wants to be explosive as well. And they did a good job last season, early on, really throughout the season, of getting those big plays. And now he's got a new toy to play with. But only one guy can be the star of the show on each and every play. And saying that, the offensive line has to do their part. The other receivers have to block. Greg Bell out of the backfield has got to get some productive yards, especially on first down, to open up that passing game. They were too one-dimensional last week. The run game was abysmal. Bo wasn't sacked, but, he was pressured a few times by Ormalade. So as a whole, the offense has to be much better. But yes, this offense is capable of scoring 30-plus per game, but they got to show much better than they did last week.
Are there any big lineup changes that we can expect for Hamilton from what we saw last week, knowing that, Saskatchewan's coming in with a few injuries and some replacements? What does Hamilton look like?
Yeah. I think the big two is Brendan O'Leary-Orange, who, Canadian depth receiver who has shown, he's been on, good footing with Bo Levi. Doesn't look like he's going to go. He's got a rib cage injury, wasn't a participant in practice. The other one is sort of a question mark. He's questionable going into this game against the Roughriders, and that's Isaiah Wooden. He's got a bad hamstring. He could play, but they might be extra cautious knowing that this is game one of 16 more to come after this. So they might press pause on him, and that would be somewhat of a loss because here's an explosive guy who's got tremendous speed. He can flip the field, and as we all saw, can take it to the house at any point in time. So that'll be an interesting development to see who they replace him with. Quavian White, who's a newcomer to the Canadian Football League from the NCAA and had a cup of coffee in the National Football League, can not only play linebacker or defensive back, but he can return kicks as well. So he could be a sub if Wooden can't go. Otherwise, they're pretty healthy. All the stars are going to be there. Just a matter of them, being all on the same page and getting the job done.
Rick Zamperin joins us on the Western Pizza Guest Hotline. He's the play-by-play guy for the Hamilton Ticats. Now, as a wrestling fan, or if you pay attention to wrestling, you have baby faces, the good guys, and you have the heels, the bad guys. I would say that your color guy is one of the ultimate heels ever in the CFL. Simone Lawrence, no shortage of entertainment, no matter where he went. It was always fun as a Rider fan, whenever he would make his way to our fine province, somebody to yell at, maybe he would yell back at times. What's it like working with Simone? He's a character, to say the least.
One of his favorite stories, and I asked him about this actually about a week ago, is just, the interaction he had really on a game-by-game basis with fans. And we always get the impression that these players can't hear what's being said, but they can. Yeah. And he did. And he responded at times. And, he just relayed the story of, these crazy Saskatchewan fans with watermelons on their heads, yelling at him. He's yelling at them. But it's all in good fun, at least as far as he's concerned. Here's a guy who, as you know, has, his energy knows no bounds. He's also a great student of the game. So he is able to, describe what just happened on a play and do so in a way that the average fan, hardcore or not, can understand. Why did that play materialize? Why was that guy open? How did the offensive lineman miss this block? Or, what was the impact of that? So he has an innate ability to translate that in real time to the average fan. It's fun to watch, and he has that infectious energy that brings the broadcast to another level. I'm so happy he's, my right-hand man, and looking forward to the rest of the season with him beside me.
There's no Luke Mullender. Let's be clear. He's no Luke Mullender. Yeah.
There's only one of those.
Yeah.
Well, what was his thoughts? And I guess you don't want to put words into his mouth. What were the thoughts that you shared when you looked at the defensive line play from last week? From the outside looking in, again, Vernon Adams Jr. is going to do things with his feet, but I thought that there was a very good job, I don't know what I'd grade it at, but of keeping him in the pocket and making sure that he was a passer.
Certainly there were some missed assignments, and Simone and I talked about that, and the rest of our broadcast crew. It wasn't a perfect outing for the defense, but they got a couple of sacks. The times that they did pressure VA, he made a couple of mistakes. Hamilton got 2 interceptions. They got a third that was negated by a roughing the passing penalty that I thought was a little soft, but the league wants to protect its star players, and I fully understand that. But at the end of the day, the defense allowed far too many first downs when Calgary had 2nd and 9, 2nd and 13, 2nd and whatever. It seemed like the Stamps were getting a fresh set of downs at key moments in the ball game, and ultimately translated those into points. With at the end of the day, the Ticats just couldn't overcome. So overall, I thought the defense, especially compared to Game 1 last year, was much better, much more formidable. They seemed to adjust on the fly. I'd like their secondary way better this year compared to last year with the addition of Deshaun Amos. And when Reggie Stubblefield is healthy, and they're going to be that much better. But this D has a few more levels to get to be considered anywhere close to being an elite level defense, like I think Saskatchewan can proclaim here in the early going of 2025.
How much does Katsantonis being that hard-hitting safety, that calming presence back there, because he's a vet now, and there are a lot of young guys on Hamilton's defense, maybe not a lot of household names yet, but I look at Katsantonis, and I'm always like, that is a guy that, hey, if he was ever on our team, I know that we would love him. Rider Nation would love him. He's a great Hamilton Ticat, and always comes to play.
Yeah, he's got the DNA of what a Ticats player is, hard-nosed, a student of the game, a guy who can rally the troops when things aren't going well, hard hitter, is always relentless in his chase to the football. And you pair him with Destin Talbert, who's an up-and-coming halfback, the addition of Amos. Now you have Jonathan Moxey, who's that Swiss Army knife at cornerback, can play some linebacker. Jamal Peters can be that shutdown, boundary side cornerback. The secondary is much better in that kind of captain back there as Katsantonis, who's kind of making sure everyone is in position, rallying the troops when they're down. So, yeah, he's been a perfect addition and a very consistent performer as well. He doesn't miss a lot of games. I know he missed, I think it was 3 or 4 last year because of the injury bug, but day in and day out, he's there. He's producing. He's getting big interceptions, momentum swinging plays, pass knockdowns at key moments. He's been an awesome addition ever since arriving in Hamilton a few years ago.
I think we'll wrap here. Now it was called the Donut Box, nickname Tim Hortons Field. Is there a new corporate name for the Hamilton Ticats where the stadium is? What are we going with?
Not yet. I've heard they're close, but nothing has been officially announced. The Donut Box is no more. The Tim Hortons Field experience ended after a 10-year corporate sponsorship deal with Tim's, but looking forward to the next one. And if it is the one that I hear close to signing, it's going to be pretty cool.
Nice. Mitchell's Lemonade Stand Field. I didn't think that was going to happen.
That's pretty close. Pretty close.
Sometimes if I'm watching the Rogers Ontario feed for the hockey games, a lot of pizza. If it's the pizza at Hamilton Ticat Stadium, there's that. Let's see. There's a million. options there. Well, Rick, thank you for this. We really appreciate it. And we're looking forward to this on Saturday. I know it's week 2, but every week for us is like we're playing at the Grey Cup when you're part of Rider Nation and we haven't won a Grey Cup in 12 years. Oh, wait a minute. Yeah. 12 years is a long time. What's the number in
Thanks
Hamilton?
for bringing that up.
Yeah.
Okay.
1999 was a long time ago. We're not even in the new millennium, and we haven't won a Grey Cup. But hey, listen, Saturday night as well, Garney Henley's number 26 is going to be retired. So maybe that will inspire this new generation of Ticats to go all the way.
And we had him on earlier. On down the line, Frank McChrystal's head will be gracing your stadium there when his bust is unveiled later on.
Awesome. And a well-deserved bust it will be, for sure.
Yeah.
Rick Zamperin, play-by-play voice of the Hamilton Ticats on the Western Pizza Guest Hotline. Thank you.